The Demeter Code by Russell Brooks. Music composed by Jeremy Vaco. Chapter 1, Part 2. Timothy, move! Paris yelled as she quickly drew her EMP and took aim. Instead, Wayland tried to beat the would-be assassin to the gun. He was successful, but the bigger and stronger hitman grabbed Wayland's hands and aimed the gun upwards, resulting in both of them fighting over it. Shit, I told you to move! The gun was swung in Paris's direction and a shot was fired. She ducked into a roll, just as tiny bits of plaster and dust rained down on her. She aimed at the man who easily outmatched Wayland, being at least 6'1" and around 220 pounds. The man kept Wayland between them, making it next to impossible for Paris to take a clean shot. The two of them were on their knees as a second bullet struck the wall between them, adjacent from Paris to the left. For a split moment, the sidearm was pointed away from her. That was her opening, one that she had to take, since one should automatically assume that situations such as these rarely gave second chances. Paris holstered her sidearm and charged both of them. The only thing to do would be to knock them both over. But just as she was closing in, the assassin elbowed Timothy in the jaw and knocked him to the floor. Paris watched for a split second as he got up and turned to her, but she already dove and tackled him. She hoped that she had caused him to tear his anterior cruciate ligament. Once that's torn, not only would the assassin have a lot of difficulty walking, but he'd be in a shitload of pain. The man went down with her, but she didn't hear him scream in agony as she'd hoped. However, he lost the gun. Good enough for her. She made a quick draw of her EMP and went to aim it, only to have it slapped out of her hand and send it sliding across the carpet in front of Timothy. That's when Paris saw her ass on all fours, crawling for it. The assassin leaped forward and caught Timothy's legs, holding him down. And although Timothy kicked and thrashed, it was useless as the hitman had pinned him down. Looking behind her, Paris saw the assassin's gun. She reached over, grabbed it, then spun around and pointed at him. "Hey!" she yelled. The assassin turned to her, his eyes widening at the sight of seeing his own gun pointing at him. Paris squeezed the trigger, which to both her surprise and horror, jammed. She squeezed harder, but it wouldn't fire. She slapped the magazine, racked the slide, then got back on her target and squeezed the trigger. Still nothing. Shit! Of all the times for this to happen! The killer turned away and crawled over Wayland to reach for hers. There wasn't any time to think, only react. She dropped the sidearm and charged the assailant, leaping over Wayland in a jump side kick just as their attacker swung the EMP around. The kick knocked his arm to the side, making his shot go wide and subsequently knocking the gun out of his hand. She landed in front of him and followed through with a knuckle blow to his throat, making him gag. His head automatically dropped, and he stumbled back. Paris then put several pounds behind the side kick right into his chest, sending him flying through the emergency exit door, but not without him inadvertently kicking her EMP across the floor into the stairwell with him. Paris charged through the doorway while it was still open. She couldn't leave the chance that he'd get her gun. If luck was on her side, her attacker would have fallen down the stairs. But he caught himself with the aid of the wall that separated the upper and lower side of the staircase. He then eyed something on the floor. The EMP. Paris raced to get it, but he surprised her with a foot sweep, catching her by the side of her ankles and sending her crashing to the floor. She heard it being snatched from beside her, and when she flipped herself over, she was looking into the barrel of her own gun. A sinister grin, only a few feet behind it. This concludes Chapter 1, Part 2. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode of The Demeter Code.